Trump's goals is to build back a domestic manufacturing base in the U.S.
It's simple. If you make your product in America, you will pay no tariffs.
Manufacturing in the U.S., however, is generally more expensive. Levitt says tariffs will take effect immediately, though Trump has also said he is open to negotiation. So whatever is announced today may not be where the tariffs ultimately land. Tamara Keith, NPR News, the White House.
Liberals have retained their majority of the Wisconsin Supreme Court despite Elon Musk's multi-million-dollar effort to get a conservative on the court. Judge Susan Crawford defeated Judge Brad Schimmel. Chuck Kernbach of member station WUWM reports a battle over the ideological balance of the court signal where voters might stand on national politics.
This race, even though it was the court is nonpartisan, it was definitely a win for Democrats, and they're claiming victory against the president, his administration, and Musk. And I heard that from voters, too. They say Musk's DOGE effort is going too fast, too broadly. From young voters, though, I also heard a lot about reproductive rights, which was the big issue in the last state Supreme Court election we had here 2 years ago.
Chuck Kernbach reporting. Climate scientists in the Southwest say only 2 states, Nevada and Arizona, are doing meaningful work to recycle and reuse water from the drying Colorado River. NPR's Kirk Sigler reports on a new study that comes as 7 states are under federal orders to negotiate a deal to use far less water.
Climate scientists at UCLA crunched numbers from water districts across the 7 western states where 40 million people and countless farms depend on the Colorado River. They found that Nevada is recycling 85% of its total wastewater. Las Vegas, after all, has been internationally recognized for this. But despite a law passed in 2009, California, the largest wastewater producer, only recycles about a quarter. Colorado and its booming population, not even 4%. Scientists say these states are missing a huge opportunity to access more water ahead of a looming deadline of next year when federal regulators could order mandatory cuts if a new water-sharing truce isn't brokered. Kirk Sigler, NPR News.
Actor Val Kilmer's died. He was 65. His daughter confirmed Kilmer passed away yesterday from pneumonia. Kilmer's roots were the stage, but fans are remembering roles in several blockbusters as well, including as Iceman in Top Gun, Batman, Tombstone, and as Jim Morrison in The Doors. From Washington, this is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Matt Thomas. The Texas Senate has approved a bill now that would let teachers pray or engage in religious speech in the classroom. News 88.7 government reporter Andrew Schneider tracked this all day yesterday. He says it's the latest effort by Republican lawmakers to use a recent U.S. Supreme Court decision to expand the role of religion in public schools.
The Supreme Court ruled in 2022 that a high school football coach could pray on the field during and after games. GOP Senator Tan Parker said the bill would only write that ruling into Texas law, not go beyond it.
Grounded in the Kennedy decision, Senate Bill 965 codifies the right of school employees to engage in personal religious speech or prayer, and I move final passage.
Democrats countered that the High Court's decision explicitly said that school employees could not engage in prayer in the scope of their school duties. The bill passed on a party line vote. It now goes to the Texas House for consideration. I'm Andrew Schneider, News 88.7.
Harris County Commissioner Rodney Ellis says he's very disappointed by the removal of the bike lane along Austin Street in Midtown.
Ellis funded the more than $2 million project, which was built in 2020. He says his office was not consulted about the removal. Mayor John Whitmire said on Houston Public Media's Hello Houston that Ellis and cycling activists do not represent the community.
Some of the trails he's built, they use about once a month when he gets about 30 of his friends, and they go on a trail ride. And if you go talk to the minority communities, they are offended that it looks like people come through there like they're on display.
The Austin Street bike lane runs from the Buffalo Bayou to Houston Community College. The section south of the Pierce Elevated is being removed. I'm Dominic Anthony Walsh, News 88.7.
And Hello Houston is going to have Bike Houston on to get their take coming up shortly here on News 88.7. As for the weather, we have a wind advisory until 5 o'clock this afternoon. A lot of humidity, a lot of wind, highs in the upper 80s. I'm Matt Thomas, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Procter & Gamble, maker of Metamucil, a fiber supplement containing psyllium, a plant-based fiber for trapping and removing waste in the digestive system, designed to be taken every day. More at metamucil.com.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello there.
Houston.
Hello. And hello to our YouTube viewers.
That's right. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for watching.
You can enjoy us worldwide domination here. YouTube.com/Houston Public Media. And you can see us. I was asking someone yesterday about how does it look on YouTube? And somebody said to me, well, your background looks really good.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, well, what about the foreground? They had nothing to say about that.
Stop it. That's
So
not true.
you can take a look. You can comment. You can join the show. You can also call us on the phone at 713-440-8870 to jump in on any of the topics we talk about today.
You know what I always say? I never met a camera I didn't like.
And you know what? No camera has ever seen you that didn't say, there's someone worth capturing.
There you go. Hey, you have a big event in your life.
Well, you know, I love to give the days here, like it's so-and-so day. It's today's peanut butter and jelly day, national this, that. Today is a really cool day.
Tell us.
It's my mom's 90th birthday. I was almost going to say 80th, 90. I did my job. I got her to 90. Now it's somebody else.
Oh, wow. So happy birthday, Adele.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday,
Heartbeat.
Mom. 90 years
90.
old.
That's amazing.
Good genetics here.
Yeah, I know. I hope I'm that's how long I'm going to be here on the show, till I'm 90.
90 years.
Yeah, so it's about 3 more years. No, I got a call from my mom's caregiver today. She's like, Ernie, there are no pills out for your mom today. So she may not make it to 90 plus 1 day if I don't get home soon, but we'll get to that.
Chop, chop.
Anyway, we've got a lot coming up this hour. Congresswoman Lizzie Fletcher is going to be here. As you may have heard in the news, we made news yesterday with the mayor on here talking about what was going on with the bike lanes. Well, Bike Houston is going to be here to give us their point of view on this topic, and we would love to hear from all of you. Again, the number 713-440-8870. But Celeste, as always, the show does not begin until you give us the topics of the day.
That's right. Thanks, Ernie. So Attorney General Pam Bondi said on Tuesday the Justice Department, will seek the death penalty for accused CEO killer Luigi Mangione. Mangione is facing state and federal charges for allegedly shooting United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in December. This has become a major high-profile case. If you remember, while Thompson was walking to a United Healthcare conference in Midtown Manhattan
at like 5 in the morning.
It was. It was shocking in December.
Shot in the back, at least according to the video.
Yes, that we know of. And so Mangione has pleaded not guilty to the state charges. He as well is charged in a federal criminal complaint, but has not yet been indicted on those charges. His attorney, Karen Friedman Agnifilo, has said she was in discussions with the Justice Department over the decision. Agnifilo said on Tuesday that the Justice Department's push for the death penalty shows the Department of Justice has moved from dysfunctional to the barbaric. Do you agree on the death penalty charges for Luigi Mangione? Call 713-440-8870. We want to hear from you.
What do you think?
This one is very tricky. We know that President Trump has an executive order directing the Justice Department to renew death penalty requests after President Biden declared a moratorium on capital punishment for most federal offenders back in 2021. So, are they getting pressure? Absolutely.
Yep.
Is it the right move?
But
I think they're going to make an example of him.
How much of this has to do with how he looks? He became a heartthrob. He became this almost sex symbol, Mangione. And you wonder, would they have still reacted this way if he wasn't as attractive?
I think it's more than that. I think it happened in Manhattan.
Yeah.
I mean, the number one city in the country.
Right. But I mean,
it happened to a high profile,
but
it happened to a high profile
executive.
person.
Right.
It's a big case, and I think that the government's trying to make a point. But this death penalty is generally reserved for political violence, like terrorists. This was if anything, I would say it was a commercial or a business revenge.
Right.
It was certainly violent.
But I'm saying I don't think there would be the concern and the outrage about this decision if it hadn't been that he'd become like a pop hero, a social media icon, you know? It's a very interesting
I don't know
case.
that lasted very long. Once we got past Christmas, I don't think that he was very much.
Within minutes, when this came down of that they were going to be seeking the death penalty, I believe like it literally took within minutes for people to start donating and starting new GoFundMe pages. No, it's still very much a hot topic. He has major fans.
But not because he's good looking. It's a hot topic because of what he did,
I think
allegedly what he did and why he did it. That's the hot topic. If I were his lawyer, which I'm not a lawyer, I would put him on the stand. If in fact he's found guilty. If he's found guilty and he's facing the death penalty, I think it would behoove him to tell the jury why he did what he did.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right in that regard. In that culturally, I'm not sure it's so much that he's necessarily hot, but what he did, what it represents for a lot of people. There was a lot of people that were very
not understood the anger.
Right, but he became very matinee idol-y, you know, good looking, fits a move in the country, an upset. He became the perfect poster child.
But the more I found out
about
him, that he had this horrible back issue. I mean, they showed the bolts in his back. Yeah. He apparently lost his sex life because of it. He was depressed and emotionally and in his mental health. I would put that on the stand if I were his lawyer. I'm not saying what he did was right in any way. What he did was absolutely wrong. If in fact he did it, you should not kill people. I mean,
right. Absolutely.
But I think it's important that we at least try to understand the motive and not try to say this is a person that was a pop idol or.
And that was the big argument for a lot of people is that say, these healthcare major companies have denied insurance, have denied coverage for things that we have needed. And we have had loved ones that have died because they were not able to get access to the healthcare based on these different stipulations or the complexity of our healthcare system. And to many, the United Healthcare CEO, unfortunately, Brian Thompson, represented the highest level of getting through to the system.
As you said, it's very tricky. It's not like a terrorist who says, I'm going to try to bring the United States to its knees by bombing something. That's a very different political statement.
Right.
It was more a statement like you just said that I'm angry at the system.
I agree.
I just want to finish this with this little button there that I think any movement needs a spokesperson, and they look for someone that looks right to deliver their message. And this movement has gotten their spokesperson. He looks right. He's telegenic. He gets out there. And it changes what the real issue should be because people get lost in the appearance and the packaging and all of that. There was a murder committed, and this man was shot in the back just going to his work. Was he responsible for all the things? We'll hear a lot more as the trial gets going.
Right.
I don't want to belabor it, but Celeste.
But give us a call. We want to hear from you, 713-440-8870.
Now, another story that just came across the wire early this morning, I guess it was, or late last night.
Late last night.
It was Val Kilmer.
Sad news.
Very sad news. He was only 65. We know him from so many films. He donned the bat cowl for Batman Forever.
Not his best work, not to go right in there.
Yeah, but everyone knows him as that in a lot. Well, there's that. There's The Doors.
I feel like that was his peak hotness, so that's why I know him.
Which one?
The Batman.
Oh, you love that? There's just been so many. There have been so many Batmans, but there's been only one Jim Morrison biopic. And he was terrific. He looked just like him.
I mean,
Top Secret, Real Genius, Top Gun, The Doors, True Romance. One of my favorites, The Island of Dr. Moreau. He was even in MacGruber. He did a lot of stuff. He worked in different genres. He did the Westerns. He did the fantasy stuff and the superheroes.
He had an amazing face. I mean, just a different face, but a really attractive and interesting. And it could go almost, it could look evil. It could be welcoming. It could be your best friend, like Top Gun, or it could be kind of dark like Batman.
One of his biggest films that people still talk about, Top Gun movie, where he played, fan favorite, Iceman.
Yep.
You figured it out yet? What's that? Who's the best pilot?
Who is the best pilot? What was your favorite Val Kilmer film? Give us a call, 713-440-8870. It's really sad. Did any of you see the Val documentary?
I did.
His
I
son
did watch it.
voices him because he did have throat cancer and he had a tracheotomy. And so it limited his ability to do the work he loved doing, but he was still active, still on. He worked very hard to be in Top Gun Maverick.
I thought for me what was so interesting is we often see these big Hollywood stars and, we think of them as getting their lattes and green juices and Botox and all these things. But when I watched his documentary, I really saw an artist who was talented, who was thoughtful, and I really appreciated it. It was so unfortunate that unfortunately his vocal cords were affected by his cancer.
And then died of pneumonia.
And he died of pneumonia.
I know. Rest in peace, Val. All right, speaking of movie stars, Matthew McConaughey was on the Texas Hill, so to speak. He's been in the industry 33 years. His big regret is that he hasn't filmed more in Texas. So he was before a Senate committee that's been condoned by Lieutenant Governor Patrick. This is Senate Bill 22, which would inject $500 million into a film incentive fund every 2 years until 2035. That is a way of saying $2.5 billion over 10 years. It's a lot of money. If you do the math, that's what it is. So it's a lot of money coming in. But he was right there along with Woody Harrelson, who didn't testify, but he was there. McConaughey was there. Dennis Quaid, Renee Zellweger have all urged lawmakers to pass bills to incentivize filming in Texas like they do in New Mexico and Georgia. So what do you think? You want to see more movies made in Texas? They do shut down the roads for a while, but other than that, they're kind of fun to have in the state.
As a film goer, I love it. I mean, if it were on my block and they were crippling what I did every day, I'd probably feel differently. But as a current Texan, having been here almost 30 years, I would love to see us represented. It's such a vast state with so many different vistas that can be shot, from urban centers to looking like the Alamo to,
I don't know really the economy of it. We give them $500 million every 2 years. What do we get out of it?
Well, I think with the recognition, jobs,
tourism,
jobs. Yeah, I think it's one of those things.
They get a few jobs.
We were going back and forth.
Yeah, you get extras at $11 an hour.
Well, what I found
they make a lot more than that now.
Really interesting was Georgia was the #1 state for where movies are filmed, and I guess it had surpassed California, which I always just think
it's never been
LA.
California. It's been Canada. Canada has been given such incentives.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to continue now. It may be a little different in Canada, but but Georgia and New Mexico, all pretty good.
I have to say, though, my little caveat on this whole story is the fact I am a huge fan of Hollywood backlots. And it was very sad to see there's a historic area. The Middle was shot there. All those old shows we remember from the 70s, Partridge Family, Bewitched, all of that area was still in existence up until just a couple of years ago, and they finally tore it down.
No.
And I thought it should have been a historical landmark.
Totally.
The fountain that you see at the beginning of Friends is right there with it, all on the Warner Ranch, and it's all gone because they're out in the world now filming in real locations.
That's so interesting.
We mentioned Canada and tariffs. And today,
it's National Peanut Butter and Jelly Day.
No, it's Liberation Day, but it's if you want to make a sandwich, you can make it on your own because it's DIY Day also. It is Tariff Day. I've been watching the Dow just to see what's going on there.
Well, they said the announcement the president was going to make wasn't going to come until after they closed the markets today, which is signaling maybe their
market's
concerns
up. The market's up 127 right now.
Well, let's see what happens tomorrow morning when it opens.
I'm scared to look.
We will find that out. But we're curious. What do you think of all the things we're chatting about? Give us a call, 713-440-8870.
It's interesting that it's National Peanut Butter Day because I
peanut butter and jelly. Don't leave out jelly.
What's your favorite jelly?
I'm an apricot girl.
I'm not a jelly person.
I'm a strawberry preserves person.
I like apricot. I know it's not. I know.
All right, but peanut butter, crunchy or smooth?
Crunchy.
Smooth.
Crunchy.
Skippy.
I'm a crunchy peanut butter.
Creamy.
But as a mom, whenever that's my go-to, I pack peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
As an adult, that's my go-to.
You can't send peanut butter jelly anymore to school because there's so many nut allergies.
Oh.
So I tried to pull a fast one on Philip and put sunflower butter. I've also tried almond butter. He figures it out. He's like, "What is this?"
But you know what? This also plays into the other national day it is. It is National Do-It-Yourself Day.
Yep. Make your own
DIY
sandwich.
day, so you can make a different sandwich.
Oh,
there you go.
brother. We're trying.
Yeah,
So,
tuna and jelly.
That's right. So coming up
Tuna
on
and jelly.
Coming up on Hello Houston, Congresswoman Lizzie Fletcher joins the conversation, and we will hear what she's been up to in D.C. And give us a call on any of today's topics, 713-440-8870. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
Support comes from Houston Grand Opera, presenting their 25-26 season with presentations of Puccini's Il Trittico, Silent Night, and Robert Wilson's production of Messiah. Subscriptions and more at hgo.org. Support comes from Foster LLP, supporting all areas of immigration compliance, including E-Verify and Form I-9 training and audit services. More at fosterglobal.com, U.S. and global immigration services.
They've come to the United States as refugees. They're seeking asylum. They want to be able to practice their religion freely and chase the American dream here. And many of them were so happy when they got into Shenyun. So it was especially devastating once they actually saw how the group operated.
I'm Rachel Abrams. That's Today on the Daily from the New York Times.
You can listen to The Daily coming up tonight at 7 o'clock.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV8. Follow the people fighting to save nature and understand how to mitigate the effects of carbon on our planet. The series, The Future of Nature, continues tonight at 9 on TV8 or on the PBS app.
Support comes from Baylor College of Medicine, creating tomorrow's medicine today. Known for their medical research and innovation, Baylor College of Medicine is a proud sponsor of Houston Matters with Craig Cohen, Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. on News 88.7.
Support comes from Texas Mutual Insurance Company, a workers' comp carrier dedicated to handling claims proactively to help injured employees get back on the job and policyholders get back to business. More at texasmutual.com/claims. Support comes from Moody Center for the Arts, celebrating Earth Month with several artist-led programs inspired by nature and environmental justice. Learn more about Moody's events and their current exhibition Breathe at moody.rice.edu.
And now back to Hello Houston. Call now, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org to get your comment in on today's topics. Here's Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
As you just heard, yes, we are back. Ernie, Celeste, and Frank.
Hello.
We're here. Carrying on our conversations, but our first guest today, who we're very excited to have with us, Congresswoman Lizzie Fletcher, who represents Texas' 7th Congressional District. She spoke with ABC 13 on Monday about how lawmakers in Washington aren't doing enough to keep the president and the executive branch in check. Now it's our turn to talk to her about it. Congresswoman, welcome to Hello Houston.
Well, thanks so much, Ernie. I'm so glad to join you and Celeste and Frank in this inaugural week of Hello Houston. I'm thrilled
Thank
to meet you.
you.
Thank you.
And by the way, Congresswoman, you are actually my representative. I just want to put that out there as full disclosure. doesn't mean I don't have tough questions. I just want you to know that you represent me up there in Washington.
I guess the first place to start on this type of a conversation is the fact that what we hear all the time is, you know what, Democrats are outnumbered. There's nothing they can do. What, the votes are going to come in the way they're going to come in. What can we do about it? Your feelings and thoughts on that, and how do we keep one party in check when another party is in the minority?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's good to start kind of understanding what we can and can't do. And at the same time, understanding that we have to keep doing everything we're doing and be creative and come up with more. Because I think there are kind of traditional views about how you can be successful, what you can do when you're in the minority. But the truth is, we are in unprecedented times. And this House minority is unlike any past House minority that I've served in, which was the last one, or that really anyone up here has experienced. And what I mean by that is we're seeing the majority just fold itself into the executive branch and basically rubber stamp the unprecedented actions that President Trump and his administration are taking. And Congress is just abandoning its responsibilities to the people that we represent. And so we are working hard not only to do the traditional things that we've always tried to do if we're in the minority, but to make sure that we're using every tool that we have to put a check on the administration and to urge Congress to perform the job that we're here to perform.
I do want to clarify
to conduct oversight and to govern.
I do want to clarify one thing that we didn't say in the beginning, and I'm sure people could surmise it from your comments here. You are a Democrat, and we are talking right now about the Democratic Party. And
while we're talking about that, Congresswoman, at the State of the Union, I know on the Democratic side, you all held up different signs. It didn't seem unified. The Democrats don't seem unified to fight this fight. What's your take on that?
Well, I do think Democrats are unified. I don't know that the State of the Union is the best example, because I think different people had different ideas of how do you meet the moment. And as I was saying before, this is a moment unlike any other we have experienced, and I can't stress that enough. I think it's really important for people to understand it is not business as usual up here in the White House, and it cannot be business as usual in Congress.
Well, you're going to have...
What I think you're seeing is people trying to figure out how to convey that message and how to demonstrate those sentiments when we are limited and in the minority.
Well, Cory Booker stood up for over 24 hours, setting records, drawing attention to all the things he hates about the Trump administration, and sort of pounding the desk there. And that's good symbolically for the Democrats. Realistically, what can you do?
Well, there are a few things we can do. And while Senator Booker was holding the floor in the Senate, we were voting in the House yesterday on kind of what we do the first day of every session, which is the rule that we're going to follow for the rest of the week. The bills we're going to debate, the things that how we're going to debate them, how much time, how many amendments, all that kind of stuff. At the beginning of the week, we vote on that. And I think it's the third or fourth time since I've been here, but highly unusual, the rule did not pass. That is usually a partisan rule. Whoever's in the majority votes yes, whoever's in the minority votes no. But the House Speaker was trying to kill a tool of the minority through the rule vote yesterday, which is if you can get 218 people to agree to bring a bill to the floor, the Speaker has to bring it. It's called a discharge petition, not to get super in the weeds, but there are a few tools in the minority, and there had been a discharge petition about a functional kind of issue in the House, which is letting recent parents vote remotely, as we did during COVID. And the Speaker did not want that to happen.
But it did happen.
We defeated the rule yesterday, and that is a tool in the minority.
Well,
it's the kind of thing that we can do to push back, and I think what it showed and was important is that we can use the tools that we have on the things that matter. And certainly we have to, as we look at the things coming to our committees where they're trying to gut Medicaid in my committee, where they're messing with Social Security, where they're doing all kinds of cuts to programs that we rely on in our community to fund a big tax break for Elon Musk and his billionaire buddies.
Right.
And so we are going to use the tools we have, and we saw yesterday the successful use of one of those tools in the House.
Okay.
Right. And Congresswoman Fletcher, you introduced new legislation to improve mental health care for seniors yesterday. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, talking about funds being rolled back? Talk to us a little bit about that bill that you presented.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the great challenges that we have up here, frankly, is that we want to continue to do the important work of legislating that we have been doing. And over the years, I have supported a lot of different pieces of legislation, introduced legislation to help increase access to mental health care resources. And one of the bills that I'm really proud of is one to try to increase access earlier in the process of getting access to care when you're meeting with your primary care physician instead of waiting for a referral to get to a therapist and a psychologist. So there are a lot of different things that we have been doing and are continuing to do, and it's one of the frustrations here is that while we are legislating and holding hearings and trying to develop smart and sound policy, Elon Musk or Secretary Kennedy, for example, when it comes to healthcare, are taking a chainsaw to the programs, to the laws, to the agencies that Congress has established without, with impunity, right? They are just saying, we don't think we should do this. So yesterday, while we were in a hearing on the FDA and on an FDA program that Congress started 5 years ago that needs to be reauthorized, people were lined up down the street from our building outside of the Health and Human Services Department building, badging in to find out if they still had their job. If it was green, they could go in. If it was red, they had been fired.
Wow.
And Secretary Kennedy announced last Friday they were cutting 20% of the workforce. Former FDA commissioner said during our hearing, the FDA, as we've known it, that of course makes sure that our food and drugs and cosmetics are safe, has been gutted. It no longer exists.
And Congresswoman,
And they need to come before Congress.
We've been hearing a lot of these stories and seeing this on the news. I think my question more so, and I think you need to look back to move forward. And I'm curious, how do you think, or why do you think we found ourselves in this position? And from understanding that, how then do the Democrats move forward?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it is absolutely the right one to be asking. And I certainly think there is a consensus among the House Democrats that I work with and a lot of folks at home that what we saw in November is that a lot of people feel like government isn't working. It isn't working for them. And people wanted change. They were focused a lot on costs and inflation and why the grocery bill was so high. Of course, we see the price of eggs is even higher than it was in November. Yep. And now we have things, and this is the challenge, I think. What we see from this administration is not a concerted effort to address and bring down costs. We see these totally chaotic and haphazard actions that are only going to increase costs, whether it's the tariffs. We know President Trump is announcing some more today. We know there's this 25% tariff on cars. We've seen tariffs on Canada and Mexico.
Right, but with all of that, the Democratic...
all bring costs up.
Right, but the approval rating still for the Democratic Party is historically low. How does that change? This is going on.
Well, notwithstanding Wisconsin.
Right, but then we're seeing something happening yesterday with Wisconsin. Congresswoman?
Congresswoman Fletcher, you there?
I think
we...
Yeah, keep going. Okay.
I think we lost Congressman. We'll try to get her back on the line as soon as we can. But, it's really interesting that she is saying how the government, people really wanted change and people feel like the government isn't working. Yeah. And so now we have an administration, to use Congresswoman Fletcher's own words, that is basically taking a chainsaw to a lot of these programs. Right. Unfortunately, that help the same people that are saying that they don't think the government is working.
Well, let's face it, though. The government needs a little slimming and trimming.
Absolutely.
There's no question.
Yeah.
Bill Clinton did it with approval of Congress. It took 6 months for Congress to really whittle down and approve and suggest the different cuts. Some of them Gore and Clinton took. Some of them they didn't. Right. And so it was pretty well accepted, and it led to a balanced budget, which we haven't had since then. So I get the cutting the government. It needs to be cut. It needs to be defattened. That's for sure. Right. But it's just... I think they're going about it in totally the wrong way.
Yes, and I believe we have Congresswoman Fletcher back on the line. Congresswoman Fletcher, are you there?
I am here. I'm so sorry we got cut off, and I think I was in the middle of saying, it's up to the candidates and the members of Congress to talk to our own communities about the work that we're doing and the values that we share and the vision that we have for how to make government work for everybody. Yeah. So I think I was saying that when we got cut off. And anyway, I'm not going to go on and on, but
we appreciate the work that you have been doing on behalf of all of us here in Houston, and we hope you'll keep up the good work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That's what I'm here for, and it's a real privilege. I do want to say I know this is your inaugural week, so I don't know if we're ready to do questions from others, but I do want y'all to know that I'll come back anytime. And when I'm up here, I stream Houston Public Media.
Oh, yay!
I use my young staff because I sometimes call it KUHF. But that's just ingrained from 50 years of growing up listening to y'all all day, every day. And anyway, I'm thrilled to be with you and really excited about this new program. I think it's really important.
Congresswoman, you had us that you listened to us.
Thank you so much.
And you are always welcome. We're going to have you in studio so you can see our brand new studios. So thank you.
I would love to.
Thank you so much.
It's got a cool vibe.
Yes, that was Congresswoman Lizzie Fletcher. Thanks so much for joining us. So yesterday, we're going to pivot a little bit back here to Houston. We had Mayor John Whitmire on the show, and we spoke at length with him about the removal of bike lanes along Austin Street. We also had many calls and questions and emails, and we heard from you about why he would remove them. Well, we invited Bike Houston, a local nonprofit looking to make biking in Houston easier and safer, to respond to the mayor's comments. We welcome Joe Cutrufo, the executive director of Bike Houston, to Hello Houston. Good morning, Joe. Welcome.
Good morning. It's great to be here with you, and congratulations on your inaugural week.
Thank you. Thank you. I imagine we'll start getting some calls, because the calls yesterday, the mayor talked about all these things, and all anybody wanted to talk about was this bike situation.
So let's remind folks the phone number. If you want to call, 713-440-8870. You can call in right now and join us. I guess one of the things that people talked to me the most about from what he said yesterday was he made reference to biking as recreational. And I think some in the biking community took, I don't know if offense is the right word, but were bothered by that characterization.
So biking can be recreational, and there certainly are people who only bike for recreational purposes, but there are plenty of Houstonians for whom their bicycle is their main mode of transportation. That might sound ridiculous to some people, especially in the summer, but you can acclimate to the heat, especially if you're able to shower when you get to work. This is a mode of transportation that has become more and more popular over recent years, especially since the unanimous passage of the Houston Bike Plan in 2017.
Well, saying that, let's get on that page, that this is transportation. And like any mode of transportation, it's unlicensed. There's no licensing for biking, is there?
You mean like how there's a license for being a pilot or something?
I have a license plate on my car. I have a license plate on my golf cart. I have a license plate on my boat that I don't have. But I mean, anything that is a mode of transportation has a license, and you pay into the system. And so I want to know, what's the skin in the game for people who want bike lanes to get to work, and where's the money? Where's the money coming from them?
Yeah, and I mean, I guess I would ask you, where's the skin in the game for people who want to walk on sidewalks or people who want to walk on trails?
Well, I would say that's not a mode of transportation as much as that really is part of the parks department and in making a nice environment. We're talking about, I'm not likely to run into someone while I'm walking and hurt them, so I don't need insurance for walking. I don't need insurance for running. But bikers don't have necessarily insurance unless they're covered by car insurance. But you're saying some people don't have cars. This is their mode of transportation. Where's their insurance for that mode of transportation?
Sure. And I think, you can look all around the country, all around the world, and you won't find many examples, any examples of anybody.
You can get wiped out in Berlin and Amsterdam if you're in the way of a bike real quick.
Right. But are people licensing bikes anywhere in the U.S.? No.
But maybe they should. Maybe that's where the source comes from as far as money for bike trails. I mean, what's wrong with that idea? I'm not talking about a huge amount of money.
Yeah. Are you under the impression, Frank, that your gas taxes pay for the local streets around Houston? Because they don't. They're paid through property taxes, local taxes for the most part. As a bicyclist and as a driver and as someone who walks, I pay all those same taxes, property taxes, local sales taxes, and all that sort of thing. These are not gas taxes paying for the bike lanes, because that's not where local street funding comes from. So it's sort of a myth in the transportation world that, bicyclists don't get licensed and don't buy gasoline, therefore they don't deserve any space on the street.
Okay, I don't want to argue with you, but where's the licensing that allows insurance? Where's the insurance if you hit me, I'm a pedestrian, and you run into me? Where's your insurance to cover my injuries?
Is that something that happens commonly?
Not commonly, but accidents aren't common. It doesn't matter if it's common. There are plenty of lawyers that will represent both a biker that gets hit by a car or a pedestrian that gets by a biker.
Yeah, and I think you would find that the vast, vast, vast majority of crashes that take place in Houston or anywhere are between drivers and other drivers, or between drivers and bicyclists, or between drivers and pedestrians.
Agreed.
The cases in which bicyclists are hurting or killing pedestrians are so blessedly rare that I find this line of questioning almost ludicrous. No offense, Frank.
And we just want to remind everybody you're listening to Hello Houston. We're taking your calls right now at 713-440-8870. We're talking with Bike Houston President Joe Cutrufo. Thanks for joining us. I think one of the things that yesterday Mayor Whitmire was talking about, he kept saying recreational cycling, and he talked about, that mass group. But my husband's a cyclist. My father-in-law's a cyclist. My kids cycle. We are always out and about, and we're walking. And it absolutely is more than just an advocacy thing. It's a safety thing. And there's been studies that prove over and over and over mobility, accessibility to different forms of transportation only benefit a city. So, Joe, why don't you talk to us a little bit about that, the benefits, the reasons that you all are saying that it's absolutely ludicrous to roll back things, safety barriers and things that have already been in place, that have been funded and are completed, to roll them back without any foresight.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Celeste. We heard the mayor come on the show yesterday, and he said, I'm listening to Houstonians. He said that over and over again. He's listening to some Houstonians. I think he has selective hearing as far as that goes. But you know who does a really good job listening to Houstonians is the Rice Kinder Houston Area Survey. Most cities around the country don't have something like this, where they actually ask residents questions about their quality of life, about their concerns, about all sorts of things. And the last time that they were asked about transportation a few years ago, what they found was that 50% of Houstonians, 50% of, this is Harris County residents, would be willing to live in a smaller home if it meant they could walk places more easily. They found that 52% of Houstonians want to be able to ride a bike more often than they currently do. And in that same line of questioning, they also said about 1 in 10 Houstonians in the last 30 days used a bike for a non-recreational purpose. That's a huge number. When you look at the population, Harris County is the size of Oregon, Kentucky, Louisiana, right? Take 1 in 10 of those residents who are already riding for non-recreational purposes, add in the recreational cyclists. That's a lot more people than I think the mayor believes to be using our streets.
I've got some questions for you, but I know Alon has been waiting on the line to chat with you. So if you got your headphones on, let's hear what he has to say. Alon, what's on your mind today?
This is Alon. I live in the Acres Homes area. I used to live near Cullen and Griggs. For credibility, I've been bicycling in Houston since 1969. The first 3 decades in the Third Ward area, and more recently in the Acres Homes. But
Alon, I'm going to move you ahead a little quicker because we're short on time. What's your question?
The biggest danger facing cyclists is the crevices or cracks between lanes, which can trap your wheels and slow you down in moving traffic. Also, the unenforcement of speeds. The average speed in 35 zones is about 50 on multi-lane streets.
Yeah, Alon, I'm going to stop you right there. I'm going to stop you right there and let Joe take it from there. Safety on the public streets, I guess, is his point.
I mean, safety on the public streets is paramount, and I think it's worth mentioning that the mayor, any mayor, has a moral obligation to ensure that regardless of how you get around, that you have safe access, that you are able to get home safely at the end of the day. And whether it's the way the streets themselves are designed, which is a huge concern, especially in a city that has been mostly designed, I think we can all agree. Houston grew up around the car. We've got a reputation for wide highways. We've got a reputation for asphalt and exhaust and big trucks.
It's hard to find sidewalks.
It sure is. Yeah. And now we're in a situation where, we've got bigger cars and trucks than ever before, and people are increasingly distracted and impatient. When you look nationally at the pedestrian and bicyclist death toll, it's going up in line with smartphone adoption. So distraction is a huge issue too.
I'm gonna stop right there because I do want to ask about something, bring it a little more into the moment. Mm-hmm. A lot of concern came in about what happens on Austin Street and them taking out that bike lane. The mayor has talked about, if not on our show and other places too, that it's these armadillos that seem to be the problem, that they're not as effective as they should be, that they're in disrepair, and And I'm curious, is it something where they are talking from that point of view about putting in something else in place of the armadillos or just wiping this out altogether? What's your understanding?
Sorry, and I want to jump in. That's right. Ernie is correct in that the mayor did say it's not necessarily rolling it back, but it's a maintenance issue.
Which is money. That's why I thought everyone should have skin in the game.
So, sorry, go to Ernie's question.
What we're hearing is that the mayor has no intention of putting back any protection for people on bikes. Mm-hmm. And that's really unfortunate, not just as someone who rides a bike, but as a Houstonian, because everyone benefits when we make streets safer for people on bikes. The research shows that when you make a street safe for people on bikes, you make it safer for everybody. The mayor may not agree with our perspective, and our perspective is that it's additive. We believe that Houstonians should have more options. Mm-hmm. Just as the Kinder Houston area shows, people want more options. We're out to provide those options.
We saw a lot of those bike lanes go in, at least in my neighborhood, I've seen a lot of them. Did we see an uptick in people using them? Did it actually increase people using bikes for transportation, things like that? Do we have any studies on that?
We don't do a great job measuring this. The few permanent counters that we have around Houston are mostly on trails. There's a couple that are on streets, but the data shows that where people are riding in protected bike lanes, nobody's getting hurt. In fact, about 100 people have been killed while riding bikes since the Houston Bike Plan was passed by City Council in 2017. Not one of them died on a street that had been improved to be safe for bicyclists. I will tell you, there's a fellow named Derek Fincham who was hit while riding in the Austin Street bike lane a few years ago. But Derek is alive today and spoke to the mayor yesterday at City Council to say, I'm here today because the Austin Street bike lane, those concrete curbs, saved my life. A woman driving a Tesla hit the curbs, was slowed down as a result, and he suffered some broken ribs and a night in the hospital. But he's still alive, and he's able to ride his bike again.
If we didn't have the bike lanes, people would then just be riding their bikes on the streets.
Yeah, correct? And I think that's a big problem. Not just for people riding bikes. You all drive cars, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Yeah, and I drive a car too. And I don't really like when the bicyclist and the driver have to share the same space. It happens.
Totally agree.
It happens. I'm actually more comfortable being the bicyclist because I know where to position myself, how to be visible. People who are driving, who don't get proper training, who don't know exactly how to pass a bicyclist safely. I mean, some states have safe passing laws. There's a lot of concern about that. When you have a dedicated, separated bike lane, then it's easier for everybody. Everybody has their own space.
Right. It's how to pay for it is the problem, according to the mayor.
Well, the stuff that has been built, Frank, has been paid for already. He's tearing it out. That costs money too.
Maintaining it, yeah. Well, maintaining it costs money, but so does tearing it out.
Maintaining it costs a lot less than tearing it out and having to repave Austin Street, which was just paved only 5 years ago.
Before we wrap this up, I'm curious, so I'm assuming what you folks would like is to have some communication with the mayor about it, or is there communication? It's not evolving to where you want. What's the next step for you guys?
You know, I met with the mayor early on in the campaign. I met with almost all the mayoral candidates. And what the mayor told me was that he follows the data and that he's a pragmatist. He's running for mayor to solve problems. And he said, you know, when you get in a car and you drive across Houston, it's plain to see all the problems that we have. He wants to solve those problems, which I respect. And I thought that sounded pretty good. Mm-hmm.
Well,
I don't know what happened to that. I don't know what happened to that version of John Whitmire, but he was more recently in the news saying he doesn't really care what we think because he views our organization, which has over 12,000 supporters, as anti-car activists, as a special interest, as paid activists. He was saying this to people who were speaking at City Council yesterday. I find that disgusting because these are Houstonians who took time out of their day, took time off of work to go and speak directly to the mayor about an issue they care about.
Well, this conversation will continue. There's a lot more to it. We appreciate you being here.
All right, Joe, thanks you for being
me
here. I appreciate your opinion and the information. Good information. I appreciate that. So coming up on Hello Houston, we'll be speaking with musician Storm Large, who's performing at the Hobby Center, and we're also taking your calls on any of today's topics, 713-440-8870. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7. Stay with us.
We believe in your right to free information. Help protect trusted news that keeps us all informed by supporting Houston Public Media. Stand up for your right to information. Give today at houstonpublicmedia.org or call 888-909-0887.
Support comes from the Shepherd School of Music Opera Department, presenting John Corigliano's The Ghosts of Versailles at Brockman Hall for Opera, Friday, April 11th and Sunday, April 13th. Tickets at music.rice.edu. Support comes from Broadway Bank's commercial banking team. Since 1941, committed to helping businesses with their financial needs and growth. More information available at broadway.bank/commercial. Member FDIC.
Support comes from UNT, offering an online master's degree in professional and technical communication, designed to prepare students for careers in technical writing, content strategy, digital communication, and more. Details at online.unt.edu/PTC.
Support comes from GenPro, a Houston-based home generator service, providing power to homes during unexpected outages, helping with connectivity and productivity. More information is available at genpro.com. Support comes from UT Health Houston, home to maternal fetal specialist Dr. Jerry Refuerzo, who helps keep moms and babies healthy and safe through high-risk pregnancies and births. More at uth.edu/manyfaces. Support comes from attorney mediator Ron Bankston, providing in-person, video conference, and hybrid mediation and arbitration services. More information is available at ronbankston.com. Support comes from Pearland, Texas, offering new construction with custom options and amenities, mature neighborhoods filled with trees, and urban living. Details at pearlandedc.com/inspiration. Pearland, inspiration lives here.
And now back to Hello Houston. Call now, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org to get your comment in on today's topics. Here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
We are back again.
Hello, Houston.
Moving into some music now.
We needed a little music.
We need a little music, a little entertainment. Okay, our next guest has been described, I love this, as a rare mix of punk with cabaret, pop, and rock and roll. She's covered songs from everyone from ABBA to Metallica and also performs her own material. You may have seen her or gotten to know her through her participation in a couple of high-profile music shows on television, Rockstar Supernova or America's Got Talent, or also touring internationally with the band Pink Martini. Well, all that's going to come to Houston tomorrow and Friday night at the Hobby Center for 2 shows. Please welcome to our show, Storm Large. Hello there, Storm.
Hi, Storm.
Hey, Storm.
Hello. How you guys doing, Houston?
We're doing great. I was one of those Rockstar Supernova fans, and I saw you, and I've been a fan ever since.
Oh, thanks.
Ernie loves you.
It was almost 20 years ago.
I looked at that and I was like, oh my Lord.
And then Ernie tells me that you were with Pink Martini, and I'm a huge fan of Pink Martini.
I like to drink Pink Martinis. That's like that's a Cosmo with not too much cranberry, right? Storm knows.
Storm, okay, the first thing is for those who say, oh, that name can't be real. That's your real name.
That's my birth name, yeah. My father had a friend named Storm and thought it was a great idea to name his soon-to-be 6-foot-tall giant daughter Storm Large. Yes, our real last name. It's it builds character to be picked on that much your whole life.
Well, it's a good thing you picked to go into showbiz with that name.
I love that name.
Definitely.
As a weatherman, I love Storm.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Frank is a weatherman.
I think there was a famous weatherman in New York, Storm
Fields.
Storm Fields.
Yeah, his dad was Frank Fields.
My mother-in-law's maiden last name is Storm.
Well,
there you go.
See, it all comes back.
It all comes back.
Well, Ms. Large, you're going to be bringing a storm of music to Houston over the next couple days. Try that segue there.
I can't wait. It's been a while since I've been in Houston. I can't remember the last time. I don't know if it was with Pink Martini or with the Symphony.
Well, we still don't have enough bike lanes, just so you know. So tell us what.
I'm a big bicyclist.
There you go. Tell us what's going to happen. Tell us what's going to happen at the Hobby Center.
Well, I'm driving in.
Okay.
And no, it's going to be. I'm doing a show called Inside Voice, which is just sort of a joke about being told to be quiet and to be still and not be too much, and how pretty much every artist at some point has been told that. And so it's going to be just me and a piano singing kind of uppity songs.
Well, I was looking over the different styles of music you have recorded in and the work you have done and the number of years you've been doing this. And a friend said to me, that's someone who truly doesn't just love music, lives music. How do you feel about that?
I would say, yeah, it's been a home for me forever. I've never been married to one genre. I call myself genre fluid because I can't sing opera. I'm not really technically a trained singer. I just have a lot of love for a lot of different kinds of music and passionate lyrics, and so I kind of just cartwheel into whatever I can that I can wrap my throat around and give it any credence and make it sound good.
As a performer, do you find it limiting when they try and categorize you?
No, it's more limiting for them, and I've done this for 30-something years, and every step along the way, people have said, "Yeah, we just don't know what to do with you." I'm like, that's fine. Just put me in front of people and they'll show up and they'll have a great time and they'll come back. I like being uncategorizable.
Yeah.
And I love that about you. And you're looking to share the music of women who embody the spirit of well-behaved women who rarely make history. What do you mean by that? And, I want to hear more about that because I'm fascinated how you're connecting the be quiet, be still. Every artist has heard that to this show where it's just going to be you and the piano. I'm fascinated by this. Tell me more about that.
It's just sort of a play on words because, when you're trying to say something passively aggressively to someone to keep it down, we don't want to hear your ideas. Just use your inside voice. It's pretty rude. And then I started thinking about the phrase and thought, well, actually, do you really want to hear my inside voice? Like what I'm saying inside my head? It's pretty homicidal right now.
I absolutely love that because as somebody who grew up, in South Texas, as a little girl, I've always been very bubbly and boisterous, and I was always the social butterfly, and I always had teachers telling me, Celeste, calm down, sit down. Yeah. So whenever I hear you say that, you're absolutely right. Are you sure you want to hear me in my inner thoughts? You
want to know what's going on?
You want to know what's going on?
I'll
tell you what's going on. Yeah.
We're about out of time, but I've got to ask really quickly, what is it like doing those music competition shows? Do you like them? Or, they obviously bring attention.
Well, both times I was asked to perform on them. I didn't chase them down, so it was different for me. When I was on Rockstar Supernova, I had already been in the music business for about 15 years.
Yeah.
And then after I got called to do America's Got Talent, I had been in the business for 30-something years. So for me, I'm not counting on it to make my career, but there is a huge, massive difference between being known as a musician and being known from television.
Yeah. There you go.
I do not like being known from television.
Well, we know you as a musician and look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Storm, drive carefully. Thank you so much for joining us.
So look out for those spikes.
That's right. You can catch Storm perform at Houston's Hobby Center this Thursday and Friday. So coming up on Hello Houston's second hour, we'll talk with Houston Chronicle food critic Bao Ong, and he will take more of your comments on the top stories of the day. Stay with us.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from Houston Grand Opera, presenting Missy Mazzoli's contemporary opera Breaking the Waves, making its Houston debut at the Wortham Center from April 19th through May 4th. Tickets are available at hgo.org.
Looks like a windy day ahead of us. We have a wind advisory, which remains in effect. Otherwise, partly sunny, windy, slight chance of rain. And this is your NPR station, KUHF Houston News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston.
Coming up this hour on Hello Houston, local apartment developers get a big tax break if they set aside some units for low-income renters. But who's actually benefiting the most? We'll have a Houston Chronicle reporter in studio to talk about a new investigation. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. You're a big part of this conversation. Join us at 713-440-8870. You want to watch us? You can do that too, live on YouTube at HoustonPublicMedia.org.
And I'm Frank Billingsley, and I cannot wait for this segment. We're going to talk about good things to eat in Houston with the Chronicle's brand new food critic. He'll be live in studio.
We also have some thoughts on the day's top headlines that you'll want to hear.
First, though, the headlines from NPR and News 88.7. Stay with us. The second hour of Hello Houston is next.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump is rolling out new tariffs. He is expected to offer details 4 p.m. Eastern today. NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben has more on what could be affected.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt showed reporters a graphic of all kinds of tariffs on U.S. goods, and one example was Mexico's 150% tariff on American alcohol. So a reciprocal tariff in this example could be the U.S. imposing a 150% tariff on Mexican alcohol. Now, again, I want to stress this is just a hypothetical I'm giving, but in this example, that would mean U.S. importers would pay a 150% tax to bring that alcohol into the country.
NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben reporting. Democrats won a key judicial race in Wisconsin, and Republicans won 2 special elections in Florida. NPR's Domenico Montanaro says the results are giving Democrats some hope and Republicans some cause for concern.
The win in Wisconsin for Democrats was big because it saw the most spending for any judicial seat in history, and it became something of a referendum on Elon Musk. Musk spent roughly $20 million to support the conservative judge in the race and even made an appearance in the state. His agenda of sweeping federal cuts has been unpopular, and this result is a warning sign for the party not to embrace them too tightly. Republicans won the Florida House seats by double digits, but Democrats significantly cut into the margins in these deeply conservative districts. You don't want to overread results of special elections, but the party that consistently overperforms in them usually does well in the next midterm elections. Domenico Montanaro, NPR News, Washington.
The United Nations says one of its health care centers in the north of Gaza that was being used as a shelter for displaced Palestinians was struck by the Israeli military today. It says there have been reports of 15 people killed, including children, casualties the UN could not independently verify. The Israeli military says Hamas militants were using the building as a command center. NPR's Hadil Al-Shalchi with more.
The United Nations agency responsible for Palestinian affairs, also known as UNRWA, said that its workers were managing the shelter in Jabalia, north of Gaza City, when the Israeli strike hit. The agency said none of its workers were hurt and that it had shared the building's coordinates with the Israeli military. The Israeli military said Hamas militants were using the building as a central meeting point for organizing attacks. The healthcare center was turned into a shelter for 160 displaced Palestinian families. UNRWA says despite the strike, many displaced families have not left the site simply because they have nowhere else to go. Hadil Al-Shalchi, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
Elon Musk's Tesla is reporting a 13% decline in sales in the first 3 months of this year. Company experiencing a slide even after offering a number of incentives. However, we see Tesla shares are up more than 4% this hour. This is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Matt Thomas. The Texas Senate now has approved a bill that would require sheriffs in larger counties to collaborate with ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. News 88.7's Patricia Ortiz says there are 5 counties in Texas that would also have to fund the collaborative efforts themselves.
Any county with a population over 100,000 would be required to enter a 287G agreement with ICE if the bill becomes law. Texas Senator John Huffman from Houston is a co-author of the bill. She says Harris County has had a 287G agreement in the past.
It was a very important tool and very successful in giving information to prosecutors and law enforcement about who was in the jail.
Other senators voiced concerns about finances, racial profiling, and damage in trust. Harris County has previously ended their 287G agreement for similar reasons. Texas Senator Sarah Eckhart from Austin says a new agreement would initially cost Harris County $1.67 million.
We are dedicating more and more on a federal obligation.
The bill now goes to the Texas House. I'm Patricia Ortiz, News 88.7.
25% tariffs you've been hearing about on imported cars and auto parts expected to take effect today, which could have an impact on locals who are looking for a new ride. Prices could increase on new cars as early as the middle of the month. It's one of several tariffs on foreign goods. Mark Jones is a political science professor at the University of Houston. He says this is going to cost American citizens, at least in the short term. However,
the worst case scenario, they tank the economy, send us into recession, and Republicans bear the brunt of voters' approval in November of 2026. But the more they push the tariffs, the worse it's going to be for the population. The only real question is how bad it will be.
Jones was a guest on today's Houston Matters. As for the weather, it is overcast and breezy and humid, 80 degrees on the UH campus, a wind advisory until 5. I'm Matt Thomas, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance with its Name Your Price tool, a way to see coverage options based on a driver's budget. Learn more at progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello there, Houston.
Hello, Houston.
Celeste, you going to say hello?
Hola.
Hola. ¿Cómo está?
So we are here with you for the next hour. And remember, you can join the conversation. Call us at 713-440-8870. You can join us on our socials. Just look for Hello Houston. You can watch us on YouTube.
The YouTubes.
Somebody was teasing me yesterday. You guys keep saying the YouTubes. Yes, but you can also find us. Just go to our website, HoustonPublicMedia.org. You'll find all the ways you can interact and join us and be part of the conversation. We've got a lot coming up this hour. We're also going to find out about some of the best new places to eat right here in Houston. The Chronicle's food critic will be with us. But before we get into our topics, carrying over from the first hour, Kenneth is on the line with a comment. Kenneth, what's on your mind today?
Hi, I'm Kenneth from Katy. I'm on the air, right?
Yes, you are on the air, Kenneth.
Welcome. Hello, Kenneth.
So I just wanted to talk about the Congress. I want to talk about the topic the Congresswoman brought up earlier in the last hour.
Yep.
The tools Democrats had in the House to counter what the Republicans are doing as a minority party. The comment I had was essentially that the tools that they have and they could use, they aren't using. Yeah. What they're doing is they're acting defensively, and they're staying within not just the rules, but the norms that we've followed in the past, like in the 2019, 90s, stuff like that. But I think the proper response the Democrats should use is to throw a counterpunch. They should be more aggressive, and by aggressive, I mean they need to be more progressive in the reaction. Because during Obama's term, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, the Republicans became more right-leaning, and as a minority party, they got in the way as much as they possibly could. Like, for example, not even giving a chance for Obama's justice picks, Supreme Court justice picks, to be able to be voted on in the first place. Mm-hmm. Things like that, aggressive actions like that, I think is what's necessary for Democrats to maintain the democracy we have now, especially with the stakes they themselves have put on the presidency.
Yeah, Kenneth, quick question for you, and I asked this also of the Congresswoman. So how do you think we got here, and can we learn from that?
How I think we got here? I think we got here by Democrats being soft, essentially. Mm-hmm. Like things like Medicare, stuff like that. they didn't do enough, and they were just Band-Aids on an overall problem. And that's how everybody started feeling like the government isn't working for us.
Kenneth,
that's what led them to find somebody radical like Trump.
Kenneth, I thank you for calling. And as I'm sure you can guess, we are going to be staying on this topic a lot. It'll be something we'll be conversing about. I hope you'll keep listening and join us in with your thoughts on it as we work through how we bring balance back to government. Thank you very much for calling today, Kenneth.
Hey, I'll say I've interned on the Hill as a younger man, and when you're the party out of power, it's very tough.
Yeah.
I mean, even to,
but he makes a good point.
He did very good points.
Republicans, when they were out of power, they gummed up the system enough to kind of.
Well, Mitch McConnell was very clever.
Yeah,
yes.
And that's what I think Kenneth is talking about. Let's get.
Well, they're gonna have to grow a pair of shoes and get to walking. That's
well.
For sure.
Let's hope they grow those shoes. If you've got a comment, a thought on what we're talking about today, join in 713-440-8870. So let's throw more stuff into the mix today.
That's right. So state representatives heard arguments this week about a bill that would make it more difficult to construct a high-speed rail project in Texas, multiple high-speed rail projects in Texas, including the long-planned bullet train between Houston and Dallas. House Bill 1402, written by State Rep. Cody Harris of East Texas, would prevent the use of state or local funding to alter roadways for the construction of the high-speed rail. Opponents and proponents alike discussed the proposed law and its possible effects on projects like the Houston-Dallas bullet train, which has sought it's been in the works now for more than a decade to create 240-mile railway that would travel between the state's two largest cities in approximately 90 minutes. Okay, we want to hear from you, Houston. Are you in favor or against the high-speed train? Will this ever actually happen?
I'm for it. I've heard about it for 3 decades. It's just been there on the books forever. Mm-hmm. And certain airlines were against it because they don't want the competition in the air if you're on the ground, obviously. And then the whole eminent domain problem has been there. Finally, they're getting more closer to it actually becoming a reality. And now there's this new bill. I don't know.
That's right.
I don't know why this guy has a dog in this hunt.
Well,
he's from East Texas.
I think it's a great idea, though. I mean, I've gone back and forth at different moments in my life. Right now, it's like, I want to just, if there was a train that took me to Dallas in 90 minutes, I'd go up there much more
have you ever
often.
taken that fancy bus? I think it's called Von Lane.
Yes, Von Lane. I have some friends that love it.
Yeah.
Literally love it.
And it goes to Austin and it goes to San Antonio also.
Yeah.
So I think this train, if it ever got between here and Dallas, would eventually go from here to Austin to Dallas. It'd be a triangle.
Yeah, and
it would be great.
My friend ran a marathon in Fort Worth, Corey, and she booked her bus trip back to Houston, and she was telling me that it was not as comfortable after running a marathon. But
is anything?
Well, I will say
even
this.
a bath hurts.
She really
you mentioned
it.
Corey, and she booked a trip. Well, that leads me to our next story of Cory Booker. See what we did there?
Oh, wow.
You like that one?
You get the prize for the day.
Democratic Senator Cory Booker mounted a historic protest on the Senate floor across 2 days, actually 25 hours and 5 minutes. Setting a record,
Wow.
the longest floor speech given. And they always say in modern history. I wonder why. Did someone in ancient American history do longer? He broke the record set by Strom Thurmond. Strom Thurmond's long speech on the floor was about civil rights in 1957. Booker said that he was speaking in spite of the previous record holder's remarks, but it was also to bring attention to what's happening on the Hill. And what do you think? You know, ABC News talked with him after his epic speech.
There's a lot of people out there who are asking Democrats to do more and to take risks and do things differently. This seemed like the right thing to do.
And it sounds like a very tired man talking.
Yes.
That's exactly what I thought. I wondered if we watched or heard it from the beginning to the end, how different his voice
Well, he had
changed.
a lot of people watching it on YouTube. The numbers were astronomical. Not close to the numbers we're getting here at Hello Houston, which you can watch on YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm segueing again.
It was pretty epic, though, and I get it. I mean, he's trying to do everything he can to at least refocus the Democrats on, hey, if we stand up for ourselves and we take issue with these issues, we can make a difference.
And this is the type of
action that we want to see, or that people are asking to see from the Democratic Party. We want to see that y'all are getting it together. You're showing that you are going to go at lengths or time,
I think,
to prove your point.
An argument that would come up against that is, okay, so he did theoretically a stunt. Where is the actual legislature? What are they doing there? You know, it's great.
Yeah.
I would say, I'm with you on this one. I would say it brings attention. We're talking about it now. Would we be talking about that if he hadn't done that? So you got to do those things that catch the people's eyes. But now let's see, what's the action that's going to
So you have to take a page out of the Trump administration. You have to win the news. And they did that.
More than a few people have asked, well, how did he go to the bathroom for 25 hours? But we don't know the answer to that.
I think we do know the answer. Other people could make a statement or ask a question.
I thought he couldn't leave the desk. I couldn't go, maybe he went just a few feet and we didn't know.
Yeah, but somebody would ask a question and they would keep it going until he got back.
I think it just depends.
Oh, wow. Okay, let's diaper that up. So today, President Trump set to unveil what he's been calling reciprocal tariffs. Taxes on imported goods from a broad range of countries aimed at penalizing them for their trade barriers. It's a push that he is branding as Liberation Day, promising it will bring in foreign tariff revenues to be put toward U.S. tax cuts and deficit reduction and spur a renaissance in U.S. manufacturing. He's going to talk at 3 o'clock. I don't know. What do you think about this? 713-440-8870. This is a huge change in our economy, and it's certainly the agreements that we've had with Mexico and Canada are being affected after being in place for more than 2 decades.
Yeah. You were saying earlier,
I'm looking at the Dow.
Yeah,
the Dow is up 342.99.
But as I mentioned earlier, they're holding the announcement until after the market closes.
Well, it's kind of a who's going to blink first,
right?
I think, and that's what we're going to have to wait and see. Who blinks first, or who blinks more?
What
Who's
do you
more
think
afraid?
out there? 713-440-8870. I think my concern is I question the strategy of all of it. What is actually at play? It seems like it comes on, it goes off. What is the game at play here, and what is the final outcome?
Well, and everything, as we've been hearing, that is going to be affecting the farmers and the automobile industry, and those are our two big industries. I mean, I can't imagine. Don't we have pipelines out of Canada that come into the United States?
Yeah.
So this is going to affect all of us eventually.
Michael Garfield was talking about yesterday on the show. Every American-made car actually has parts of it made out of the country. They go
even
in and out,
Tesla, which is a very American-made car.
So we're going to see these. Anyway, I will say one other thing. Your depends comment a minute ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
When I was working with William Shatner, and he would get questions from the audience. He got a question. He's 95 now. The question would be, Mr. Shatner, boxers or briefs? And he would wait a pause and say, depends, which I thought was brilliant.
Speaking of depends, Ernie.
Speaking of depends, okay, neurovirus.
How many times can we say depends?
I know.
It depends.
It depends.
Neurovirus outbreak on a luxury cruise ship has left 224 passengers and 17 crew members ill, according to the Center for Disease Control. A more frightening story than when you get to the fine details, and the neurovirus is categorized and often called the stomach flu or a stomach bug. Not quite the pandemic that I'm expecting there, but boy, oh boy, those cruise ships. I know I love taking cruises. I haven't in a while, but I do enjoy it. I've never been part of a massive outbreak like that, but what do you think?
Absolute nightmare for me.
Yeah.
This was on the Queen Mary.
Terrible.
The second.
Yeah.
You know, someone told me.
The Queen Mary number 2.
Number 2. I think this is good advice. It's kind of crazy. You know, they give you a hand sanitizer as you go to the buffet.
Yeah.
Someone said, don't stop there. Take surgical gloves that you can get at the store and wear those while you go through the buffet, because it's the handles, the spoons and the forks and the knives that get the food out of the buffet to your plate. That's where you're going to pick up a virus from someone else, and then take the gloves off and eat. But, by the way, there's someone very much for rail online. I know. Do we have Van on? Van, are you there?
Van from Champions.
I am here. I'm right here.
You're from Champions. What do you think about rail? And that might affect Champions.
It very much might, and I would love a faster way to get to Dallas. I don't go to Dallas because the driving there is absolutely horrific along 45, 35, whichever way you want to do it. I used to live in Dallas, and I have reasons to go back, but I avoid that because of the time it takes to get there. And this could be the new Southwest Airlines, which is shooting itself in the wings these days.
Okay, Van, my question for you is, and this is the thing that goes through my mind even when we talk about the bus and stuff, we're so dependent on our cars. When we get there, we don't have our cars. Even when I go to New Orleans, I think, by the time I go to the airport, check everything and fly there, get stuff, get back to the hotel. But if I drive, I've got my car when I get there. What do you say?
You drive. You drive to New Orleans.
Yes. Yeah. What do you say, Van?
I don't drive to New Orleans because once I get to New Orleans, I can walk, I can take the streetcar, I can call an Uber. And that's one of the oldest cities in the country, and they've got better public transportation than Houston. Okay.
There you go.
So the rail is just like the bike lanes. We need more alternatives to our automobiles. It's our own damn fault that we have become too dependent on our automobiles. And Dallas has got it over Houston like $1 over a dime because you can get on the fast light rail there in Dallas and get hit or yon all over that place.
Van, thank you for your thoughts. Remember the number here, 713-440-8870.
Speaking of bike lanes, Roth from Montrose. Roth, are you there? What are your thoughts on bike lanes?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes, Roth, what's on your mind today?
Well, I've been a resident of Montrose for about 8 years now, and the addition of bike lanes, I'm not so opposed to that in principle, but in practice, what happened when they added all the bike lanes was in the area, they ended up eliminating lanes. Obviously, they had to eliminate some lanes to accommodate the bike lanes. They eliminated more than they had to in many places, and they put in a lot of concrete medians, which makes it a lot harder to get around. Just in the Montrose area in general, I think that.
Kind of lost you there, Roth.
They did that to West Alabama also. They turned it from 2 lanes to 1 lane, and they put the bike lanes in. And honestly, I'm for bike lanes, but I've never seen anybody in the West Alabama bike lanes.
Yeah.
And I drive it every day, and there's never anybody there. So it's like they really need to do more of a study on all of it.
I think that's part of what the mayor was talking about, was looking at how and where they were laid out. But then the other side says, well, yeah, they were laid out and people were using them. They needed to do it. We'll continue this conversation here as the days, weeks, and months continue on. Celeste?
Yes, and that's right. Join the conversation, 713-440-8870. Coming up on Hello Houston, Houston Chronicle reporter Yilun Cheng will join us to talk about the latest in tax breaks for apartment dwellers. And we're also taking your calls. We love hearing from you on any of today's topics. That number, 713-440-8870. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
Hi, I'm Craig Cohen, the host of Houston Matters. Join me weekday mornings at 9 or at your leisure on your podcast feed for your daily guide to the people, places, issues, and ideas that define Houston. From politics to the economy, energy to the environment, healthcare to education to transportation and beyond. If it matters to Houston, it matters to us. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts or live on the air weekdays at 9 a.m. right here on News 88.7.
You depend on solid facts and trustworthy reporting from Houston Public Media, and your support makes sure it's there when you need it.
Now's your chance to protect the news that you rely on. Give right now to help ensure this trusted service stays strong for you and for your neighbors.
It's quick, it's easy, and it's something you can do right now.
Don't wait. Give today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
Support comes from UNT, offering an online master's degree in professional and technical communication, designed to prepare students for careers in technical writing, content strategy, digital communication, and more. Details at online.unt.edu/PTC.
Support comes from GenPro, a Houston-based home generator service, providing power to homes during unexpected outages, helping with connectivity and productivity. More information is available at genpro.com.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Visit Galveston, presenting Art Walk. Various art is featured in downtown galleries and artist studios. Now open to the public on the second Saturday of each month. More at visitgalveston.com.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from CertaPro Painters, offering residential and commercial painting services, from color consultations to full project management. Estimates and more at CertaPro.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. Call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org to get your comment in on today's topics. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
And welcome back to the program. Ernie here. Celeste,
Frank Billingsley.
Frank.
Celeste Diaz
Hola.
Sherman. Buenos dias.
Well, okay, new story here for us. Here in Houston, apartment developers are able to receive, listen to this, 100% property tax breaks in exchange for marking some of their units as affordable. This is done through a state program called Public Facility Corporations. But as Houston Chronicle's Yilun Cheng reports, along with R.A. Schutz and Matt's Dunn, it's the apartment developers who are benefiting from the system, not necessarily the renters in need of affordable housing. We're going to dig deeper with that because we have Yilun here with us. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
This is something. I read the article in the Chronicle, and we want to talk about this. So tell everyone listening and watching, what's the issue here?
Sure. So the system is built around a state program called Public Facility Corporations, or PFCs. And basically how it works is if the owner of an apartment complex agrees to reserve half of its units as affordable, then it can work with a local governmental agency like the Houston Housing Authority to apply for a 100% tax break. And that agreement usually lasts for decades. And the problem is they don't always have to build new affordable housing. Some developers actually choose to purchase existing apartment complexes with already relatively low rent and then apply for the program, turn the property tax-free without actually having to significantly lower rent.
And that's really interesting because I live in an area where I believe last year or the year before, they had identified new apartment complexes to use this system.
Interesting.
And there was a big group that we were really upset about this because we felt like it was going to change a lot of the way our neighborhoods felt. And we didn't understand it. It was very complex. When we were trying to get answers from the Houston Housing Authority, we really couldn't quite get answers. So what role exactly does the Houston Housing Authority play within this system?
Sure. So the Houston Housing Authority negotiates these deals with the real estate firms and also has to approve the projects. And the authority itself also actually charges a fee from every deal. And over the past 7 or 8 years, it's earned more than $70 million from these deals alone. The officials are saying they're using the money toward other affordable housing projects, but for a long time, they didn't quite explain how exactly they're using the money. So for this story, we actually put in a public records request for its accounting breakdown. And we're seeing that it didn't really start spending the money until a couple years ago. And so far, it's spent about $45 million, but we want more information.
Well, it looked to me, to put it simply,
sure,
that what's happening here is an apartment complex is being told, we'll waive your taxes, your property taxes. And it could be $1 million. So we're going to waive your complex, your taxes. You'll pay no property taxes. In return for that, you have to put at least 50% of your apartments to be very affordable. But what is happening is some of these apartment complexes are only putting 6% of their units affordable and still getting the full $1 million tax write-off.
Well, the issue really is their definition of affordability can be pretty loose. Correct. So under PFC rules, a unit is considered affordable if it's reserved for a family earning less than 80% of the area's median income. In Houston, that's about $60,000 a year for a two-person household, and that translates to a rent cap of about $1,500 for one bedroom. That's not really what you think of when you think about affordable housing.
No, that's very middle class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly.
So you think that the wrong people are benefiting from it, and maybe the apartment complex is being too much benefited from it.
Sure. So the tax break can be very large, right? Depends on the size of the apartment complex. But a large apartment complex can get $1 million tax break every year.
Mm-hmm. So is the question then that you want to do away with the program, or does the program need to be reformed? From where you folks sit, what do you see?
Well, so we talked to advocates and also housing experts, and they're saying there's value in the program, but it needs more reforms. And actually, in 2023, state lawmakers did pass a reform bill to have some basic accountability measures and also implement stricter affordability requirements. But the issue is those new rules, most of them only apply to new projects and not the 100 or so existing projects that are still going to last for decades to come.
So it would seem that we should have lower prices for the units and more of them.
Exactly.
In return for these huge tax breaks.
Right.
But it's not going to be retroactive to places that have already gotten that break.
Exactly.
And so how is it benefiting low-income families? Have we seen an increase? Has it done anything for families that need it?
Sure. So like we talked about, it's catered more to middle-income families.
Right.
So the Housing Authority is saying that over the past 7 or 8 years, it's helped created 17,000 new units. But they're not new units. A lot of them were basically acquired and turned tax-free. And also only 1% of those units actually serve extremely low-income families, people who are living below the poverty line.
Does the Housing Authority have a definition for the term affordable housing outside of what you said in this program? Is there some way we range? What is affordable housing? What is low-income housing? How do they break that up?
Sure. So according to state law and also federal guidelines, they're really categorizing it as, are you serving families earning less than 80%, 60%, 30% of the area median income.
Right.
So the 80% level, which is what most PFC units are, actually they're categorized as moderate income families and not low income.
Okay, we're talking to Yilun Cheng, reporter for the Houston Chronicle, about this whole issue of tax breaks for apartment complexes if they are willing to put at least half of their apartment units into an affordable account. For low-income families, which it turns out is more middle income.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a minimum wage job and you're working a full 40 hours a week, you still can't afford $1,500 a month in rent. And are there other alternatives for folks who are out there working but just are not working at that level? What do we see? What is the city, what is the area, what is the state doing for those folks who are working but want a place to live?
Sure. So local officials have defended this program, saying that, having to actually lower rent to that level needs to be combined with other tools like housing vouchers. So, potentially having a combination of different tools could serve more needy families. And also local officials, they can have the power to negotiate harder and negotiate for better terms on behalf of low-income renters.
We want to remind everybody, if you have any thoughts or comments about affordable housing here in Houston, give us a call, 713-440-8870. Yilun, how do they identify the locations? You were saying how they're pre-existing apartments. How is the city identifying, or this program being identified, a need within the area?
So they work with real estate firms. So basically, developers or the owners of a complex, they will be the one to apply for the program along with Houston Housing Authority.
So anybody could apply for it.
Exactly.
But no one's doing anything illegal. What you're saying is the system is broken.
There needs more reforms.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another question for you. Folks that are listening right now who may be low income or housing affected and can't find, where can they go to look? Where can they find help to find a place to live?
So I believe the Houston Housing Authority does have a list, but what we found through our reporting is that it can be really hard to find a unit that actually suits your need. It's not just the rent is still relatively high. It's because apartments also sometimes add additional fees, like a community fee or a trash fee on top of the income restricted rent, and that could easily add $100 or $200 more, and that's a significant burden for someone living below the poverty line.
So what happens in our city with those folks who can't afford it? Are we just increasing the homeless population? Are there other alternatives?
Well, that's why we have a large homelessness population, and also people are just struggling. It takes them longer to find a suitable unit. It takes them a long time to find a program that suits their need. People with vouchers could also lose their vouchers because they can't find a suitable unit in time.
We have a caller on line 8. Artis, are you there?
I am here. How are you guys?
Hi, we're doing
Artis.
well. Thanks for joining
Welcome.
the conversation.
Artis is a director with Harris County MUD, a municipal utility district. And you say a lot of people are making money, Artis. What's going on?
So we've been aware, I'm on West Harris County MUD 6 as a director, and our attorney, John Wallace, has made it clear to us over the past year and a half that this has been an ongoing problem with municipal utility districts. So as you know, Houston has got MUDs that are both in and out of the city. Mm-hmm. And the challenge here is these law firms have tagged up with the apartment complexes, and they're actually shifting the financial tax burden away from apartments to the homeowners. So you have homeowners who are now picking up the tax burden not only for themselves in a MUD, but are also picking it up for the apartment complex.
Right, and then the apartment complexes aren't coming through with giving enough low-income units.
So what's happening is you have apartment complexes who are basically tax-free, and they're being subsidized in a MUD. So now your homeowners are financially in trouble because homeowners cannot support an entire MUD themselves without other groups paying taxes. So this is just not for the poor income. This has put several MUDs in the Texas area in severe financial stress.
Wow. Yilun, do you have a response to that?
That's a really valid concern because MUDs are tiny. They have a small budgets. We've seen a case where, exempting one apartment complex from a MUD took almost 10% of its entire tax base.
And somebody's going to have to make up for that.
Basically.
I do have a question for Artis. Artis, are you still on the line?
I am.
So what do you propose needs to happen to find some type of solution to this obvious big problem we're having?
So John Wallace and a group of our representatives from AWBD and the different boards are in front of the Texas legislature right now, bringing forth several solutions to this. We understand that the legislation was meant to do good. The problem is the industry has figured out how to work around the Texas legislature, and the challenge is how do we bring a bill forward that still has the advantages for the low income, but doesn't punish the MUDs. Now the MUDs have gone ahead and made strategic changes to their rate orders. So, for example, in our MUD, if a apartment decides to come in now, we will go about and reassess them in a different mode than with water and sewer rates because they're going to opt out of those taxes.
Artis, thank you very much for calling and joining the conversation. The number here is 713-440-8870. Maha is on the line now from Montrose. Maha, what's on your mind?
Hi, thank y'all for having the show.
Thank you.
My question is just about rent in general. Like, why?
Why what?
Oh, sorry, I put myself on mute. Why is the rent?
I thought your question was going to be rent in general. Why rent?
Yeah, well, that too. I'm not going to lie about that. But like, why is it even allowed to get so high in general? At a certain point, I mean, I just think it's ridiculous. Why do their profit margins get so high? And now they have these AI tools they're using to artificially inflate their rent prices and then blame it on a computer. But like, I mean, it just seems really ridiculous. And when is it going to be like codified into law to protect the like actual renters?
Maha, I'm going to cut you right there.
Yeah.
I think we got it really quickly. So the answer to rent control, things like that for this Houston area, no taste for that, is there?
Right. That's a very complex issue. And the larger challenge is, the Houston area is still growing. While some other larger metros like New York and Los Angeles, they're losing population. We're still growing. Especially on a lower income level, there's just a bigger demand than the supply we have. And I think that contributes to rising rents.
Okay, you mentioned that there are people who put these deals together. One of them is Lance Gilliam. He is on line C. And I know he's calling here in from North Carolina where he's working out there right now. Lance, what's your take on the conversation that we've been having? I know that you don't agree with all of it.
Well, it's not that I don't agree with it, Frank. I agree with much of it. It's just, and all the Chronicle's done great work, but it's incomplete and it ignores changes in many cases since 2000, since the last legislative session, since 2023. So there's good deals and bad deals, and I'm happy. I'd love you to ask me the exact same questions, you asked Yilun. So, like I said, it's just not as easy as it's being described.
Well, we will ask you the same questions. So how have developers and local officials misused the system?
Well, that presumes when they misuse the system. But I can tell you the way the law was originally written, and which I disagree with, by the way, in 2015, allowed for misuses, and did not require by statute for developers to provide meaningful affordability in Houston. One of the things the Chronicle does it, and just made a mistake a second ago, HUD defines what the definition of low, very low, and extremely low incomes are. This tool was never intended to serve extremely low income families. It was actually difficult to serve very low income families. And the way HUD defines very low and low income is 80% of AMI and 50 to 60% of AMI. I apologize for my car, but it's either 50 or 60% is very low. But this tool has never worked for extremely low income families, those making 30% of AMI, and it's difficult to work and scale for 50 or 60. It was intended to work to take pressure off working families, and I realize that lower income families work, but essential, affordable, attainable housing at the 60 to 80% level. And so that's where the advocates and us, I don't know what to say is, you're right, it doesn't work for extremely low income families.
Lance, notwithstanding that, to give an apartment complex a full 100% tax break when they are not meeting the 50% set aside for lower income families does seem unfair.
It's illegal.
It's illegal.
It's not unfair. The statute's very clear, Frank, that in order to receive the benefit, you have to restrict half of the units to 50% or below, 50% or greater for affordable units. And the best practice, even before the statute was changed, was that 20% of the units were restricted for 60% of AMI families and 30% for 80. But if you're not meeting if you're not meeting the minimum statutory requirement, you should not be receiving the benefit. That's very clear.
Would you say that would be the solution to this?
Well, that's the current law. That's what's ironic. And I read the article, and part of it was about me, right? Is our clients should be held accountable to meet the requirements of the statute and their agreements with whatever authority set up their transaction. And if they're not, they should not receive the benefit of the bargain. And like I said, I was surprised by one of the reportings, and I'm curious about it. I have not had a chance to explore it. I'm volunteering my time in North Carolina for their disaster right now. But no, if somebody's not doing what they're supposed to be doing, they should be held accountable. And in 2023, the law changed that made that more clear for Chapter 303, and the law is almost certainly going to change for these other transactions that are done under, like, throw numbers at you, Chapter 392 and Chapter 394 in the current session. And we support that. That's what's ironic is we absolutely support that.
Okay. Well, Lance, thank you for calling in. We appreciate all of the information there. I think, Yilun, I would be upset if I was renting, because rents are often based on paying property taxes, the landlord paying the property taxes. Because we always hear one way or another you're going to pay it. If you own a home, you're going to pay it. If you rent somewhere, you're going to pay it because the landlord's going to pay it. If I found out later that the landlord wasn't paying it and was only allowing a few of the apartments to be subsidized, I would be like, wait a minute, where's my tax break?
Right. I guess Mr. Lance Gilliam brought up a really good point. Like, the current way the system is structured is not designed to serve extremely low income families with the current legal requirements. But the question is, should it? It's getting like hundreds of thousands of dollars per year or up to $1 million per year of tax break. Does it have the capacity to further lower rent than what is legally required now? And I think, he raised a good point that lawmakers really made significant improvements in 2023 when it comes to PFCs. But the problem is some developers simply switch to a nearly identical program called Housing Finance Corporations, or HFCs, which allows them to carry out basically the same deals with fewer restrictions. I know lawmakers right now are looking at that program as well this year, hopefully to close some loopholes. So we'll have to see what happens.
Well, great reporting from the Houston Chronicle and yourself. So thank you for being here on Hello Houston. We really appreciate your time. And coming up, we're going to talk food here on Hello. I know Ernie's already getting excited. What are your takes on today's topic? 713-440-8870. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
Declaring bankruptcy is difficult enough. Getting debt relief is harder for some than others.
We see that minority filers are 13 percentage points more likely to be dismissed, meaning that they're denied debt relief.
I'm Kristen Schwab, Bias and Bankruptcy, next time on Marketplace.
You can listen to Marketplace is coming up tonight at 6:30 on News 88.7.
I'm Jeremy Hobson. Next time on The Middle, the Trump administration has focused a lot of time and effort on bringing down illegal entries into the country, making border security and deportation one of its main early policy goals. But what about those who want to come in legally? It can be a long, complicated process. So how do we improve legal immigration, and why does it matter to our economy? That's next time on The Middle.
Listen to The Middle Thursday night at 8 p.m.
Support comes from Houston Grand Opera, opening the 25-26 season with the return of Gershwin's Porgy and Bess, blending jazz, spirituals, blues, and classical music into songs like Summertime. Season subscriptions and more at hgo.org. Support comes from Pearland, Texas, a community with a variety of living options, from new construction, mature neighborhoods, and urban living, designed for any lifestyle. More at pearlandedc.com/inspiration. Pearland, inspiration lives here.
Support comes from Baylor College of Medicine, creating tomorrow's medicine today. Known for their medical research and innovation, Baylor College of Medicine is a proud sponsor of Houston Matters with Craig Cohen, Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. on News 88.7.
Support comes from GiveMeTheVIN.com. Purchasing vehicles in minutes with the VIN or license plate, or by bringing the vehicle to Houston area offices. Details at GiveMeTheVIN.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
And welcome back to the show. I'm Frank here with Ernie and Celeste. And Ernie's getting excited.
I am. I love it when we have food segments on the show. But, we live in such a vibrant area and so diverse. And if the count is right, there are over 13,000 restaurants representing over 70 countries and American regions. So much to try. Why do I always find myself at the same 3 restaurants?
All of us do, because you can count on it. It's reliable. You know what it's going to cost, and you know how long it's going to take. That's my feeling.
I mean, I think that's solid, but I got to tell you, I know, Ernie, you said that you love food segments. I usually do too, but not when I haven't had lunch.
Oh, yeah. This new show, its time slot is interfering with our lunch plans.
I think we need to take this show out on the road and go to some restaurants and have lunch.
Well, you know who could point us to these good places? Well, the person who can tell us all about him. He is the Houston restaurant scene reporter for the Houston Chronicle. Bao Ong, welcome to the show. Good to have you here with us. You came to Houston during the summer of 2022. We were outside of the pandemic already, or was it still?
Just outside of the pandemic. I remember, I think July 2022 is still the hottest on record in Houston.
So you came here. What was your first impression of our food scene?
Well, I had been to Houston maybe a half dozen times before I moved here, but I was just surprised by how sprawling the city was, how diverse it is. And, I lived in New York City for 14 years, and
I got a few restaurants
I started
there,
to feel
too.
like I knocked off all like the big name restaurants, but here I got to start all over, and it's 2.5 years later.
While we
I'm still
chat,
making it.
we want to hear from you about some of your favorite restaurants or recommendations for either Bao or for us at 713-440-8870.
Bao knows what he's talking about. Bao is a graduate of the French Culinary Institute. He's
got some street
He's worked for
cred.
Bon Appetit, Eater New York, and I love Time Out New York. I think it's a fun online space. So, relatively speaking, as someone who's kind of new to Houston, have you found a favorite yet? Have you been like, this hits it. This is a New York style restaurant.
That's a really hard
I know.
question, and I get all the
I'm gonna
time.
interrupt here. New York style restaurant. No, is it a Houston style restaurant? Because Houston is the food scene, not New York. New York doesn't set the standard. Houston sets the standard. You heard that right here on Hello Houston.
Okay, notwithstanding all of that,
all right.
Have any favorites?
The one restaurant that I kind of go back to again and again is Squabble. It's in the Heights.
I love Squabble.
Love it.
A great brunch. A terrific brunch.
A great martini, half off on Tuesdays.
So are you like us? That
my kind of guy.
You find yourself going to the same handful of restaurants all the time when you're in your off time?
I don't get a lot of off time. I feel like every meal, especially now that I've started in the restaurant critic role,
gotta be something
is
different.
work related, but there are a handful of restaurants that I go back
let's do
to.
genres.
That's what I want to know. First of all, before we get to genres, I want to know, how do you become a food critic? Because we all eat, we all have our opinions, but everybody's looking to you, and that's kind of a big job to say, hey, what's new, what's cool? The service has to be good, the food has to be consistent, there has to be an ambiance, and like Ernie was saying earlier,
that's your criteria.
There's a lot in Houston, and Houston has the best of the best to offer. How do you get, not that I'm looking, but how do you get that job?
Well, everyone's path is a little bit different. I did happen to study journalism and kind of fell in love with food writing early on. And, but for my approach was always to become a reporter first and foremost. Mm-hmm. And then when I moved to New York City, I didn't have a job because I had just quit my daily newspaper job covering fires, murders, floods, everything under the sun. But I went to culinary school, and that kind of started my path into food writing, and really to kind of understand the kitchen and working in restaurants as well, and trying to marry those two things, like reporting and writing, and I had a few lucky breaks, and one thing led to another. I'm really happy to be in Houston.
Okay, I still want to get to genres, but now that you've said that, and Celeste's question, you go in, you start tasting a meal. It's not all about, it's got to be taste, presentation,
right,
price. What is your criteria to say this is a good place to eat?
I think, I'm considering all those things. I'm looking at, what is the service like? What's the ambiance? Do I feel relaxed when I'm here? Do I feel welcome? Is this a place I can recommend to someone right away? And, sometimes that doesn't happen on the first time, and we'll give a restaurant a second or third chance.
When you read theater critics, what I find is you learn their taste over time, so you know whether you find it valid or not what they're saying. Is that the same with a food critic? Should we learn what are the things that excite you, and maybe they match with us, or maybe we're opposite of you, so we can use it as a gauge even if we're not 100% with you?
Absolutely. I think those are the critics that I look up to, that have a really strong voice, and you start kind of developing a relationship, because you start understanding, oh, Allison Cook likes this type of restaurant, or she gravitates towards this type of food, or this writer likes this part of Houston, in comparison to another. And I think, it's only been about a month for me, but I'm hoping to develop that relationship.
Will you have to go disguise at some point because you'll be treated extra special because everybody knows you're the food critic?
We're definitely low key about it. I never make reservations under my own name.
I think I'm getting the image. I'm getting the image of the food critic from Ratatouille, where he walks in, and everybody is like, "Oh my gosh, it is the food critic."
Okay,
I want to talk genre.
No, I want to get to restaurants. We've got to find. Give us some recommendations.
I know. Okay. Date night. Where's your restaurant for date night? First date. I want to impress the person I'm with.
Oh, for a restaurant for a first date? Okay. If you want to impress them. If you're low key, Squabble, but if you want to be fancier, go to one of the Blue Dorn restaurants.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to have the show.
Aaron Bluedorn's going to be out on Friday's show. He's going to be here with us.
Okay, what about I want a quick going in. I have kids, I need to sit down, but I want something good. But nothing fancy, nothing frilly, and at a good price point.
And don't say squabble.
Emma, which just got named a James Beard finalist about 30 minutes ago.
I'm going there on Friday.
It's a great spot for kind of a weekend brunch, weekday breakfast. Cool. It's definitely kid-friendly, a lot of communal seating.
What about birthday? Special birthday.
My mom turns 90 today.
Your mom turns 90.
Where would I take my 90-year-old mother for her birthday celebration?
That's different. Where do we go? Where do we go that has good martinis and we're going to have fun?
Good martinis. Oh, I was going to recommend Theodore Rex, but they don't have martinis. So, but a good martini.
Hudson House.
They claim to make the coldest martini in the world.
Yeah.
But
and a good
I think I need to come back to research that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we did bring up these different styles of restaurants. You want to go out, you want to have a family dinner out, you want to do something nice, but you got to be able to afford it. What are you recommending?
Affordable, family friendly. Okay, good question. El Bracco.
The
Balboa
Italian?
Surf Club. These are, they're the guys that opened this restaurant worked at Houston's or Hillstone, as some people call them.
I've got to say, my recommendation would be Olive Garden. If you want to go.
Actually, that might be where we're going tonight.
Salad soup, breadsticks.
Unlimited breadsticks.
Soft food.
Jane from Fort Bend is on the line. She wants to recommend a restaurant. We'll see what Val thinks. Jane, what's your recommendation?
Hey, guys.
Hi, Jane.
I recommend Donna Letty's. Donna Letty's in Meyerland.
In Meyerland.
Have you had a chance to get there, Val?
Mexican food.
I have not. It just came up this week, actually.
Did it?
Donna
Nice.
Letty's. Jane, do you live in Fort Bend? Is that somewhere you frequent?
Yes, I live in Fort Bend. Yes, I frequent this Meyerland
place.
They just moved from us. They were not far from my neighborhood.
Aww.
They moved to Meyerland to a bigger space.
Oh, well, that's good.
So, Jane, I'm going to Donna Letty's. What do I order?
The Taco Tuesday and be prepared to wait. They're not typical tacos. And everything is great.
Thank you for calling. If you have a recommendation for us, 713-440-8870.
Well, Val, more and more good restaurants are outside of Houston and Harris County. Up in the Woodlands, they're getting better restaurants down toward Clear Lake. Have you had a chance to explore those yet? I know you've only been at this a couple of months.
No, I have Belly of the Beast in Spring, kind of close to the Woodlands. That's wonderful. Amrina in the Woodlands is a wonderful, ambitious Indian restaurant. Hong Kong Food Street in Katy, Brett's Barbecue in Katy is wonderful.
Speaking of barbecue, did you had a chance to taste a little rodeo food?
I did. I judged. Ernie, you were judging at Cook-Off as well.
Yes.
So I judged brisket.
He owns that Cook-Off. What was your thoughts? We got to wind this up in a second. What are your thoughts about that?
This is my third year. I think it's getting better and better every year.
Yeah.
The standard has definitely.
I would say in
increased.
brisket judging, there was less sad entries. Everyone seemed to be a pretty good entry, and I was bothered by my scores all being pretty good.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite, Ernie?
Yeah, but we don't know what they are.
Yeah.
It's all blind.
Yeah.
No, but remember, when we had our Hello Houston live broadcast, they brought over
all kinds of
food, all the winners from the Golden Buckle.
Right.
And I've got to say, my favorite, which I never thought I would have said, from the rodeo food was the crab ragoons.
Me too.
Me too.
I'm
that was
with
my
you.
favorite.
We agree on something right
today.
at the end of our show.
As we run out of time, really quickly, what do we do best in this area, and what could we focus on doing better from the food scene?
I think Houston does the best job in terms of diversity of cuisine. You can basically find anything here in Houston, and you can't say that for a lot of cities.
Yeah.
And it's also often very approachable, whether it's a price point, whether it's a service, just kind of, I think you feel welcome everywhere in Houston, and I really embrace.
That's right. That's Bao Ong. He's a restaurant critic for the Houston Chronicle. Bao, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston. And that's a wrap, and that brings us to the end of our show. But we'll be back tomorrow. We want to thank you for listening to Hello Houston. And again, join us tomorrow on YouTube and give us a call with more conversations. This is News 88.7.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altai, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kudachik. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from UNT, offering an online master's degree in professional and technical communication, designed to prepare students for careers in technical writing, content strategy, digital communication, and more. Details at online.unt.edu/PTC.
We have a wind advisory in effect for the rest of the afternoon. Currently 82, and this is your NPR station, KUHF Houston. News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston.
Funding for Here and Now comes from MathWorks, creator of MATLAB and Simulink software, accelerating the pace of engineering and science. Learn more at mathworks.com.
From NPR and WBUR Boston, I'm Robin Young.
I'm Peter O'Dowd. It's Now. Coming up, Wisconsin voters deal President Trump a loss, advancing a liberal judge to the state Supreme Court. The election is seen as a referendum on the Trump agenda.
The win shows that Democrats, kind of have a little more fight in their game now.
Also, 9 Republicans deliver House Leader Mike Johnson a loss, voting with Democrats like new mom Brittany Patterson to consider allowing proxy voting.
We're perfectly capable